So your first exam will be this Tuesday, and what I'll do is I'll make it available on Desire to Learn. So if you happen to swing by Desire to Learn after today, what you should find is a little study guide and instructions. So the study guide you can get to by following this link here, and it'll take you to a page that basically has this kind of stuff on it. And I'll talk about that in a second. Let me share with you the format of the exam, what to expect. So the exam will be on D2L. You'll log in here and you'll be all set with your notes handy, a calculator handy, and you're not going to need Google Sheets or StatDisk on this first exam. You're going to be on the Zoom. I want to see your face in the camera, see what's going on. But other than that, it's just going to be you're taking a test and writing down your answers. Now, if you've got a printer, you can print off the exam and just write right on the exam. When you're done, I want you to scan that into a PDF file and load it into the Assignments tab. You'll see a spot for exam 1. Let's see, what else? Before you scan it in, what I want you to do is show the camera what you've got on your test, because I'll be recording, so just kind of politely and, not too fast, not too slow, just show me each page of your test. That'd be great. What else? So some of the actual content on the exam, let's take a look at the little thing I wrote out for you last night. So I went through section by section and hit some highlights. So does that mean that this is everything that's going to be on your exam? No. But certainly this has got to be at least 80, 90% of it. Now, section 1.1, we talked about bias and voluntary response. So there's a problem with voluntary response is that it tends not to be representative of your groups anymore, so you can't really generalize things much. You should know the difference between a parameter and statistic and a census and a sample. These two and these two go together nicely. What's the difference between these things? We looked at different types of data: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. You should be able to identify instances of those. So look for those kind of questions in your homework. In section 1.3, we went over a lot of different types of sampling: convenience sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, random samples, and simple random samples. I want you to know the difference between these two, because quite often, a lot of what we're going to do requires a simple random sample versus just a random sample. So I want you to know what that is. After chapter 1, we went into classifying data, and that would mean putting things into a frequency distribution, trying to get a handle on it, because quite often your data becomes unwieldy if you've just got thousands or millions of records. You need to bring it together. So we looked at a frequency distribution. You should know some of the things associated with that. Once you have a frequency distribution, you can graph it with a histogram. You should be able to recognize different shapes of histograms. There's normal, skewed left, skewed right, uniform. We also looked at normal quantile plots in this section. So you should be able to tell whether or not something's a normal distribution based on a normal quantile plot. Graphs that deceive and enlighten. Mostly the graphs that deceive, I want you to understand how some graphs can be deceptive. So that's on page 62 and 63. Check that out. Something that might make you happy right here. Section 2.4. I'm not going to quiz you on that in this one, mostly because we're covering all this stuff and then more again in chapter 10, I think it is. So there's plenty enough stuff that I can cover that I'm not going to cover that here. Section 3.1. We talked a lot about measures of central tendency. What's typical about your data set? So I want you to know the advantages and disadvantages of the various measures of center. We went through a lot. I'm not going to be asking you to calculate a geometric mean or a harmonic mean, but you might want to know where this is used and why it's used, or same thing with your harmonic mean. We went over those the other day. And all I'm looking for is, oh, well, this isn't as sensitive to outliers as, say, the averages or your arithmetic mean. Median and mode, again, have some downsides. There was a handout that I gave you. You might want to look at that one. Range and variance, standard deviation, these are measures of dispersion or of variation. You should know the relationship between standard deviation and variance, how to get from one to the other. You should also know in your own words, what does a standard deviation tell you about a data set? Remember, I had you guys do an experiment. I put you in little breakout rooms together and had you work on the chat to figure out, what is it that makes a standard deviation bigger? What makes it smaller? When is it zero? Those kind of questions. So if I ask you something about the standard deviation here or on the final, hint, hint, you should be able to tell me. Beyond measures of standard deviation, we started looking at how things rank relative to the data. So we looked at percentiles and quartiles. You should know the difference between P12 and P88. If you were getting your results back from the GRE, do you want to be in the 12th percentile or the 88th percentile? You should know that. We looked at Z-scores. Z-scores were tied to Chebyshev's rule and the empirical rule. What's the difference between both of those? Make sure you understand that. Then we dived into probabilities. Probabilities are between 0 and 1. Do yourself a favor. Don't write anything down for a probability that's outside of this. We looked at events, and I asked you to understand what the complement of an event was. So make sure you understand the relationship between these two. And we went back and forth between probability and odds. We calculated net profit to try and find, what was it, the payoff odds. So that kind of stuff. Section 4.2, I'm going to do you guys a favor. I'm not going to put 4.2 on this current exam. We'll have to hit you up on that kind of material some other time. But for now, that does it for my little review here.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Are we allowed to use our notes on this test or no?
Yes, you can use notes. Just your notes.
Okay, thank you.
Notes and a calculator is pretty much all you should need on this test.
Question about, I know you said you want the camera on while we're doing our,
Yes.
exam and to show the individual piece of paper when we're done. Do you want us to also verbally do that just to get a confirmation, or will you be recording, all of us at the same time?
I'll be recording. So,
okay.
Like I said, the big thing is that, I want to see you as you're working. You should be alone. All right. Now, if you have your dog, or in your case, your parakeet there, that's fine. Because I don't think they'll be giving you any answers, or at least if they give you any answers, I wouldn't necessarily trust them.
All right.
But
got it.
I just want to make sure that you're working alone and you're not chatting with your friends on the phone. I'll be honest, I'm really not happy that we're not face to face. This is, being big brother on these tests is not what I really like. It's definitely outside of my comfort zone as far as this testing arrangement goes, but I don't know what else to do.
Okay. And so the exam we have from like 11 to 12:50 to do it, and then from then to like 1:30 to upload it, or some such? Yeah.
Okay. You should be able to upload it pretty quickly. I don't think it takes too long to scan and upload it. You might want to practice that, I guess, if you can or want to, but Yeah, you should be able to get it. I'm thinking by like 1:15, I hope.
Okay.
So, I haven't written the exam yet. It'll probably be about 20 questions. If I have a bad weekend, it'll probably be 29 questions. If I have a good weekend, it'll probably be like 12 questions. So room for me to have a good weekend. No, in
You
all
are
seriousness,
already gonna have a good weekend.
yeah, probably around 20 questions. And like I said, you won't need Statistics or Google Sheets on this first exam.
Okay.
You want us to print it out and then scan it? Or
If you have a printer and can print it out, that's fine. That's great. Print it out and write right on the exam and then scan that in to the computer. But not everyone has a printer, and I don't want to make people go out and get a printer. So what I would suggest is just write your answers. You don't have to copy the problem. Just write the answers. Don't waste your time rewriting the problem. I know what the problems are. Spend it doing the stuff you need to, which is working on the exam.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Weekend. Yes, last
You're
question.
gonna post what you recorded because my Wi-Fi disconnected like in between when you were going over it.
Yes, I will
Okay.
post it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Have a nice day.
You too.